Easter Sunday is quiet in Montana. The sky stretches wide and pale above my ranch, a flat blue that makes everything beneath it look exposed, honest. There are no buildings tall enough here to hide behind, no traffic to swallow sound, just wind, fence posts, and the steady breath of horses moving through morning light. I had been awake since before sunrise. Routine steadies the mind. Feed first, check water lines, walk the south fence. The ground was still firm from the night frost, and my boots left clean impressions in the dirt. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and hay. Wood smoke from the stove lingered low along the ceiling beams. I was rinsing mud from my hands at the kitchen sink when I heard tires on gravel. Not one vehicle. 3. The sound carried differently out here. Gravel doesn't soften arrival. It announces it. I dried my hands slowly. No rush. I stepped out onto the porch and shaded my eyes against the glare. My father's black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the barn. Caleb stepped out of the passenger side before the engine fully died. He adjusted his sunglasses and looked around with the expression he wears when he believes something already belongs to him. A third car stopped behind them. A woman emerged, mid-40s, tailored coat, leather folder held close against her chest. Realtor. My father did not wave. He did not smile. He walked toward the house without looking at me, boots grinding against gravel, jaw set with familiar certainty. He passed me on the porch as though I were a fence post. Inside, he stopped in the center of my living room and turned slowly, scanning beams, windows, the stone fireplace I laid myself 3 winters ago. His eyes measured space, not effort. "It's mine," he said. Not hello, not how are you, just ownership. My hands began to tremble, a fine tremor beneath the skin. Years ago, I would have hidden it behind words. Now I let it exist without obeying it. Caleb leaned against the doorframe like a spectator waiting for paperwork to be signed. The realtor stayed near the entrance. Professional distance, neutral smile. She believed this was routine. My father stepped toward the hallway that leads to my office. "Take one more step," I said evenly, "and you leave with nothing." He stopped. He turned his head slowly. Surprise flickered across his face. Brief, controlled. He has always mistaken silence for weakness. Growing up, he decided who I was supposed to become. Caleb was the heir, the future, the extension. College paid in full. Business loans arranged without contracts, failures reframed as ambition. When I bought this land, he called it a phase. "She'll get tired of playing cowgirl," he told relatives at Thanksgiving. "It's just stubbornness." To him, independence was temporary. A daughter was supposed to circle back, return, be convenient, not build something that did not require him. The realtor cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Thomas mentioned you were ready to discuss listing options." "I'm not," I said. My father exhaled through his nose, irritation disguised as reason. "We've already talked about this," he replied. "It makes financial sense. You don't need all this land. Caleb is prepared to expand operations. It's a smart move." Caleb nodded once, as if generosity were being offered. I looked at the woman with the folder. "Did he show you the power of attorney?" She hesitated. "Yes," I was told. "I know what you were told." My father's voice sharpened slightly. "You're being dramatic." I walked to my desk without hurry, opened the top drawer, removed a thin stack of certified documents and a small recorder. The room grew still. I placed the papers on the dining table between us. County seal, my name alone. No joint authority, no transfer. Then I set the recorder down and pressed play. His voice filled the room. "Transfer everything before she figures it out. She won't check the details. She never does." 6 weeks ago, a call he made from his office. He forgot I still have access to the family cloud account. He forgot I read. The realtor's posture changed first, a subtle shift backward, professional detachment becoming caution. Caleb's confidence faltered, his sunglasses suddenly unnecessary. My father did not move. "That recording is illegal," he said. "No," I replied. "Forgery is." Silence settled, heavy and precise. I had known about the attempt for weeks. A bank clerk from town called me quietly one afternoon. She used to take riding lessons here when she was 10. She said a man had come in with documentation claiming authority over my property. Something felt wrong to her. I did not confront him. I ordered certified copies from the county. I compared signatures. I contacted an attorney in Billings. I asked questions. I waited. Pressure does not require noise. It requires preparation. Caleb straightened. "You're really going to escalate this? Over paperwork?" "Over theft," I said. My father's voice dropped lower, more controlled, more dangerous. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I answered calmly. "You walked onto my property with a realtor and a forged legal instrument in front of a witness." The realtor closed her folder. "I believe," she said carefully, "I may have been given incomplete information." "There was no misunderstanding," I replied. I slid another document across the table. Formal notice drafted by my attorney. Cease and desist. Any further misrepresentation would result in legal action. I was not seeking revenge. I was protecting what was mine. For the first time in my life, my father had no angle, no narrative, no room to reshape the moment into discipline. Caleb's expression changed. Not anger, calculation. "We could handle this privately," he said. "There's no need to tear things apart." "Family is not permission," I answered. My father adjusted his jacket. His face had gone pale, tight around the mouth. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "It is," I replied. "The next conversation will happen through attorneys." No raised voices, no slammed doors. They left the way they came, gravel under tires, engines fading down the long dirt road. The wind returned. The horses lifted their heads, then resumed grazing. I stood in the doorway of my house. My house, under a sky so wide it allows no illusions. That morning, I did not argue. I did not justify. I did not bend. I set a boundary and held it. Have you ever faced someone who assumed you would fold simply because you always had before? How did you decide the moment you wouldn't? If this story feels familiar, you're welcome to stay and see what comes next. They expected me to panic. That was the part that almost disappointed me. 3 days after Easter, I drove into town before sunrise. The roads were empty except for a grain truck moving slow toward the highway. I passed the feed store, the closed diner, the bank with its flag already lifted into the cold air, the same bank where my father had presented the forged power of attorney. I did not go inside. I parked across the street and watched the front door for 15 minutes. Routine steadies the pulse. Observation sharpens it. My phone vibrated once. A voicemail notification. Caleb. I did not listen. Instead, I opened the folder on the passenger seat. Copies of everything. Property deed, title insurance, original purchase agreement, loan satisfaction letter stamped 5 years ago when I paid it off ahead of schedule. My name alone. No co-signer, no shared equity. When I bought the ranch, my father laughed. "You'll come back in a year," he said. "Land eats money." He offered to help manage things, offered to put the property under the family holding company for tax efficiency. I declined. He called me ungrateful. Growing up, decisions in our house were not made. They were assigned. Caleb was the investment, the extension, the name that carried forward. My father attended his business meetings in person, introduced him as my successor. When Caleb failed, it was called risk. When I succeeded, it was called luck. At 16, I asked for help applying to an agricultural program out of state. My father said, "Stay close. Family needs stability." Caleb left for college 2 months later. At 23, when I told them I had put money down on acreage outside town, my mother said gently, "You don't have to prove anything." It was never about proving. It was about breathing without permission. The bank clerk called me again mid-morning. Her voice was careful. "He came back yesterday," she said. "My father. He asked if there had been any updates to the transfer request." I closed my eyes briefly. Did you provide anything? No. After what you told us, we flagged the account. Thank you, I said. I did not sound angry. Anger would have suggested surprise. I had already spoken to my attorney in Billings, a woman named Rebecca Sloan, precise, unimpressed by family narratives. The forgery is sloppy, she told me over the phone the night before Easter. He underestimated you. He always had. That was the pattern. Underestimate, redirect, control. I drove from the bank to the county records office. The building smelled like dust and toner ink. I requested certified copies of every filing connected to my property for the past 12 months. There were 2 unfamiliar requests logged under review, both initiated by a third-party representative. Both traced back to a real estate consulting firm Caleb had incorporated last year. I stood very still while the clerk printed them. This was not impulse. This was planning. Back at the ranch, I walked the perimeter fence before entering the house. The horses watched me from the pasture, ears forward, calm. Animals respond to tone long before words. Inside, I laid the documents across my dining table in clean lines, attempted title inquiry, attempted lien positioning. Drafted transfer request. It was not just one forged power of attorney, it was a strategy. They were preparing to position the ranch as collateral under Caleb's expansion plan, without telling me. I poured a glass of water and sat down. I did not call my father. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed the shared family investment account I had quietly maintained viewing access to for years. Caleb's company was over-leveraged. 2 equipment loans past due. Operating credit extended beyond revenue. He needed land, not because he loved it, because he needed assets. I found the email thread between him and my father. She won't check the filings. She trusts us. She always folds under pressure. The date was 2 months before Easter. Pressure. That was their tool. Growing up, pressure came in different forms. Public correction at the dinner table. Financial dependency framed as generosity. Praise withheld until compliance was complete. At 12, I remember standing in the kitchen after breaking a glass. My father did not raise his voice. He said, "Careless girls grow into careless women." The lesson was simple. Control yourself or be corrected. I learned control. They mistook it for obedience. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from my father. "We need to resolve this, privately." I typed one sentence. "All communication will go through counsel." Then I set the phone face down. An hour later, Rebecca called. "They contacted my office," she said. "Your father suggested this was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't." "I know." There was a pause. "They also implied you might not be fully informed about your own financial exposure." I almost smiled. Exposure. "They're projecting," she continued. "Caleb's business is in trouble." "I know." Silence on the line. Professional respect. "I've drafted a formal notice of attempted fraudulent representation," she said. "If they proceed again, we escalate." Escalation does not frighten me. Uncertainty does. I spent the afternoon reviewing my own structures. The ranch was protected under a single-member LLC in my name. Insurance current. Taxes paid. No shared authority. Years ago, when I purchased the property, I did it quietly. No announcement, no celebration. I signed the papers alone in a county office with fluorescent lights and stale coffee. My father found out a month later. "Why didn't you ask for advice?" he demanded. Because advice always came with ownership. At sunset, Caleb drove back onto the property alone. No realtor this time. No third car. I saw his truck from the pasture and finished securing the tack room before walking toward him. He stepped out slowly. "You didn't have to humiliate Dad," he said. "I didn't." "You could have handled it without involving lawyers." "I did handle it." He looked at the barn, the fences, the house. "You don't even use half this land." "I use all of it." "For what?" Stability. He exhaled sharply. You're tearing the family apart. Family. The word always arrives when control begins to slip. Family isn't a shield, I said evenly. It doesn't protect theft. His jaw tightened. You think you're better than us because you did this alone. I did it alone because you would have taken it. The truth landed heavier than anger. For a moment he looked younger. Not heir, not investor. Just a man who had always assumed access. We needed it, he said quietly. There it was. Need, not apology. I held his gaze. Then build something you can afford. He did not respond. The wind moved through the pasture behind us. You're really going to push this? He asked. Yes. Over land? Over pattern. He didn't understand that word. Pattern is not a single event. It is repetition disguised as normal. They had been positioning themselves around my life for years. Small suggestions, shared accounts, joint decisions, incremental access. Easter was simply the moment they assumed the ground had already shifted. It hadn't. Caleb left before dark. No shouting, no threats, just the sound of gravel under retreat. That night, I locked every door, not because I was afraid, because I was done assuming they wouldn't try again. I sat on the porch long after the sky turned black. Montana nights are honest. They don't crowd you. They stretch wide and cold, forcing you to sit with yourself. I thought about the little girl in the kitchen holding broken glass. Careless girls grow into careless women. He was wrong. Careful girls grow into women who prepare. I was not reacting. I was documenting. I was not defending. I was fortifying. The next morning, I filed a preliminary complaint with the county regarding attempted fraudulent transfer documentation. Quietly. No announcement. Systems do not need volume. They need evidence. And I had plenty. Have you ever recognized a pattern only after it tried to take something from you? Did you confront it, or did you prepare for it? If you'd like to see how this unfolds, you're welcome to stay. The formal letter arrived on a Thursday. Certified mail. Signature required. My father signed for it at 9:14 a.m. Rebecca sent me the confirmation receipt before noon. I was in the north pasture when the notification came through. The horses were restless that morning. A storm was building somewhere beyond the mountains, not visible yet but present in the air. They feel pressure before it breaks. So do I. The letter outlined everything. Attempted fraudulent representation, unauthorized property inquiries, forged power of attorney documentation. It requested immediate written acknowledgement and formal withdrawal of any claims or actions related to my ranch. It also stated clearly that any further interference would trigger civil and criminal filings. There was no emotional language, no accusations, just fact. I did not call him after it was delivered. I knew he would call me. He waited until evening. His name lit up my screen just after sunset. I let it ring twice before answering. You involved the county? He asked. No greeting. Yes. You filed a complaint? Yes. A pause. I could hear him breathing, controlled, calculating. You've made this public. No, I replied evenly. You did. His voice hardened. This is a family matter. No, forgery is a legal matter. Silence. He had always relied on volume, on presence, on the assumption that I would soften once confronted directly. I was trying to protect your future, he said. I leaned back in my chair on the porch, watching the sky darken. My future was never yours to manage. Another pause. You think you're smarter than me now? He asked quietly. This isn't about intelligence. Then what is it about? Authority. The word landed clean. He did not respond immediately. When I was 8, he taught me how to saddle a horse, not gently, not patiently. If I fumbled a strap, he took it from my hands and did it himself. Watch, he would say. You're too slow. I learned quickly, not because I was slow, because I was observant. Control in our house was rarely loud. It was structured, efficient. My father preferred systems where he remained central: joint accounts, shared signatures, verbal agreements. He positioned himself as necessary. When I bought the ranch, I refused his financial guidance. That was the first fracture. "You don't understand long-term strategy," he told me then. I understood risk. I just did not outsource it. Back on the phone, his tone shifted. "You're overreacting." "No. You've embarrassed Caleb." "He embarrassed himself." "You're his sister." "Yes. And this is how you support him? By not financing him without consent." The storm finally broke in the distance. A low rumble rolled across the pasture. "You've always been difficult," he said. There it was. Not wrong, not illegal. Difficult. Because I did not fold. Because I did not seek approval. "You mistake compliance for goodness," I said calmly. "They're not the same." He exhaled sharply. "You're going to regret this." "No. You think lawyers protect you? They enforce boundaries." Silence again. For the first time, I could hear something under his voice. Uncertainty. "You've changed," he said finally. "I've prepared." He ended the call without another word. I did not call back. The next morning, Caleb arrived at the ranch again. Alone. No sunglasses this time. He looked tired. "Dad's furious," he said. "I expected that." "He says you've made him look like a criminal. He forged documents. He says it wasn't forgery. It was technical." I waited. He shifted his weight. "You know the business is struggling." "I do." "He was just trying to help. By taking collateral he didn't own?" Caleb didn't answer. The wind pushed through the grass behind him, flattening it briefly before it rose again. "You could loan me against the property," he said finally. "At least keep it in the family." I looked at him for a long moment. There was no malice in his face, only expectation. Expectation built over decades. At 10, when Caleb broke the neighbor's window throwing rocks, my father paid for it and called it boy energy. When I dented the truck door backing out too quickly at 16, I was grounded for a month and required to reimburse repair costs. Pattern. It was never about fairness. It was about hierarchy. "You're asking me to assume your risk," I said. "I'm asking you to trust me." "I don't." The honesty surprised him. He blinked. "You'd let me fail?" "Yes." The word did not carry cruelty, just clarity. "If you keep rescuing someone," I continued, "they never learn structure." He ran a hand through his hair. "You sound like him." "No," I said. "I sound like consequence." He looked past me at the barn. "You really won't help?" "I already have." "How?" "By not letting him use my name to cover your debt." He absorbed that slowly. "You think this is about money," I said quietly. "It isn't." "Then what is it about?" "Permission." He frowned. "For years," I continued, "you assumed access. Access to advice. Access to assets. Access to me. We're family. Yes? And family isn't ownership." He had no response left. After a moment, he nodded once. Not agreement, recognition. "I didn't know about the forged signature," he said quietly. "I know." That part was true. Caleb's weakness was entitlement, not calculation. Our father's was control. Caleb left without shaking my hand, but he didn't argue again. That afternoon, Rebecca called. "They've retained counsel," she said. "I expected that." "Their attorney is requesting mediation." I considered that. "Conditions?" I asked. "They want you to withdraw the complaint in exchange for written acknowledgement of error." "Error, not fraud." "Decline," I said. "You're certain?" "Yes." This was not about apology. It was about record. If the complaint disappeared, the pattern would reset. He would attempt something else in a year. 2 years. Incremental. Persistent. "No withdrawal," I said. "Proceed." That evening, I walked the perimeter again. The storm had washed the air clean. The mountains were visible in sharp relief against the fading light. The ranch stood exactly where it had yesterday. Fences intact, gates secured, systems quiet. He had come onto my land believing his voice carried authority. He left knowing paper does. Control depends on assumption. Remove the assumption, and it fractures. That was the day he realized something had shifted permanently. Not the land, not the money, me. Have you ever reached the moment when someone finally understood you would not bend again? Did it come through argument or through action? If you'd like to continue, stay with me. The mediation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Neutral office, long table, frosted glass walls that made everyone look slightly blurred at the edges. I arrived 10 minutes early. I always do. Rebecca sat beside me, calm and unreadable. A legal pad in front of her. No unnecessary folders. Across the table, my father and Caleb entered with their attorney. My father did not look at me immediately. He adjusted his jacket first, sat down, smoothed his tie. Control is often rehearsed in small movements. Caleb looked thinner. Sleep had not been generous to him. Their attorney began with a polite summary. We're here to resolve a misunderstanding regarding property documentation and intra-family communication. Misunderstanding. I let the word settle and dissolve on its own. Rebecca responded evenly. There was no misunderstanding. There was unauthorized representation and attempted transfer activity. My father shifted in his seat. You're escalating language, he said, looking at me now. No one was harmed. I met his gaze. Harm is not required for fraud. The room went quiet. His attorney cleared his throat. Our client acknowledges procedural errors and is prepared to issue a written apology for any confusion caused. Confusion. I folded my hands on the table. I am not confused, I said. Caleb looked at the table. My father's jaw tightened. You're punishing your own family, he said. No, I replied calmly. I am documenting boundaries. Rebecca slid a document across the table. A formal withdrawal of any claim to my property. Acknowledgement of forged authority. Agreement not to pursue further action. Liability acceptance for associated legal costs. Their attorney read in silence. My father did not. This is excessive, he said. It is precise, Rebecca answered. You'd really make this public record? It already is. That was the part he disliked. Witnesses, systems, paper trails. Growing up, discipline in our house happened behind closed doors. Corrections were private. Appearances were public. This was reversed. He leaned forward slightly. You don't have to do this, he said to me, voice low. I already did. He searched my face for hesitation. There was none. When I was 14, I remember standing in our kitchen after refusing to give Caleb money from my part-time job. My father stood close enough that I could feel his breath. In this house, he said quietly, we support each other. I handed over the envelope. Support was never mutual. It flowed one direction. Now, in the mediation room, that current had stopped. Caleb finally spoke. Just sign something so we can move on, he said softly. I have, I replied. Their attorney set down Rebecca's document. My clients will need time to review. You've had weeks, Rebecca said evenly. The air in the room felt heavier. My father looked at me differently then, not with anger, not even with disappointment, with recognition. The old strategy, pressure, tone, implied obligation, was not working. You've changed, he said again. No, I answered. I stopped waiting. The meeting ended without resolution. 3 days later, their attorney sent a revised acceptance, full acknowledgement, signed, filed, public record, no apology, just compliance. It was enough. The complaint remained active but dormant. Documentation complete. Evidence secured. The system had done what it was designed to do. It did not shout. It did not shame. It recorded. That evening, Caleb called. I signed, he said. I know. Dad won't speak to me. That's between you and him. He says you've broken the family. I leaned against the fence outside the barn. No, I said quietly. I ended access. Silence on the line. I didn't think he'd go that far, Caleb admitted. He always does. You're not even angry, he said. I was, years ago. Anger requires expectation. I no longer expected him to act differently. I don't know what to do now, Caleb said. Build something real. He didn't respond. After he hung up, I stayed outside until the sun dropped behind the hills. The ranch felt steady, solid beneath my boots. I thought about expansion, not for money, for purpose. For years, veterans in town had asked about riding lessons for their children. Kids who didn't speak much, kids who flinched at loud noises, kids who carried quiet weight. I had space. I had horses trained for patience. I had structure. 3 months later, I launched the program. Equine therapy sessions twice a week, small groups, no publicity beyond a modest announcement in the local paper. Word traveled anyway. It always does. The first afternoon, a boy named Marcus stood outside the paddock refusing to step closer. I did not coax him. I did not rush. I handed him a brush and began grooming the mare myself. 10 minutes later, he stepped beside me. Silence can be invitation, not control. Parents began thanking me, not loudly, just quietly, at the gate. You've built something good here, one mother said. Yes, I had. My father called again 6 months after mediation. I watched his name light up my phone while standing in the arena. I let it ring. Then I answered. I heard about the program, he said. Yes, people are talking. They do. A pause. You always were disciplined. It was the closest he had ever come to acknowledgement. I learned early, I said. He cleared his throat. Family honor matters, he added. Boundaries matter more. Silence. He did not argue. He did not threaten. He did not imply. I suppose you've made your point, he said finally. I didn't need to. When the call ended, I did not feel triumph. I felt distance, clear, defined. The ranch has grown since then. New fencing on the east side, a second barn, more horses, stronger contracts, no shared signatures, no verbal agreements, systems, structure, calm. They came on Easter believing volume would win. They left understanding that documentation does. Control only survives where it is permitted. I stopped permitting it. The sky above Montana remains wide and honest. It does not compress you. It strengthens you. I did not save the ranch that day. I reclaimed authorship. Have you ever drawn a line so quiet that no one noticed until they could no longer cross it? What changed for you after that moment? If this story meant something to you, you're welcome to stay a while longer.